What's up, guys? So today we have another collaboration with myself and Vigorous Steve. Part one is going to be on this channel discussing the whole Liver King debacle, as well as performance-enhancing drugs, being natural versus enhanced, a lot of other great topics. Part two is going to be on his channel, so we're going to have a link below to his channel. Go ahead and check that out there. Hope you guys enjoy.
Whatever podcast this may be, this is another collaboration with Dave McConey and Vigorous Steve. It's been a while, huh? It's been a minute.
Yeah, I was looking back at I just like number all my podcasts, and I think
Right.
I'm around 180 something now, and our last one
wow.
was like 120 something. And I thought, I guess because you talk on Instagram and everything, and you just
Right.
kind of forget how long it's been since you've spoken live. Although
Right.
I know you're so busy now that you probably don't respond to people as much on Instagram.
No, not as no, but with you, I mean, we've done 2 collaborations in the past. I always try to respond, but when you send me a message, it was like right before I went on holiday, and then I got flooded with messages. I guess we'll go right into that then.
Yeah.
So I missed a couple messages along the way, but hey, here we are, man. I'm always happy to do a podcast with you. For
Yeah,
sure.
no, it's always good talking. And
Yeah.
I think you were in the U.S., right? And you were
Mhm.
in Vegas for the Olympia, so we'll
Yeah,
definitely talk about that as well. Now,
for
how many
sure.
Olympias have you gone to?
This is the first.
Oh,
This was
okay.
the first one ever. Yeah, I had a great time. So, I wanted to go to the Mr. Olympia, but due to the pandemic, you couldn't really fly,
Yeah,
and there were all these restrictions. So I was just biding my time. And now that, travel is, basically unrestricted again, I figured, if I want to go to the Mr. Olympia, then this is the year to do it because the lineup was stellar. And this year was in Vegas, or last year was in Vegas. And I always wanted to go to Las Vegas. So
yep,
next year we'll be in Orlando, Florida, and I'll definitely join that one as well. So I already looked at tickets and hotels, and so I'm already in the pre-preparation phases of coming to the next Mr. Olympia this year.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I had a
I didn't
great.
know it was in Orlando. I would actually consider going to that because I have a lot of friends in Florida. So
Yeah. So by all means, come over because you'll be, if you right, your podcast is just every week, so you'll meet a ton
yeah,
of fans, and you'll be surprised how many people actually watch your stuff. Like I met so many people that watched my YouTube channel. It
yeah,
was a little bit intimidating, after
yeah,
walking 10 meters and then you meet somebody else, and then 10 meters you walk and you meet somebody else again. So I would just continuous talking with people at the Mr. Olympia, and bigger names that you would expect
really.
are watching the channel. Yeah, some IFBB pros, some industry insiders, people that I used to watch, and so that was really eye opening for me that you
That's awesome.
realize that who the audience actually is.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's awesome, man.
Mhm.
And then obviously, I mean, it's interesting your trajectory. I mean, you've kind of it wasn't like just one thing blew you up, right? Like at least I've known you
No,
for probably a couple of years now, and
yeah,
it's just kind of gradually gone up. But I guess part of it is like the connections you make, right? I mean, same thing with me, like on
mhm,
a smaller scale. But like I
right,
would meet somebody, and then I get an introduction to somebody else, and eventually
right,
you realize like, oh, I'm actually part of this community too, which is cool.
right. So that's a weird realization, and I think have you been to the Mr. Olympia or a bigger event like this?
I've never been to the
Okay,
Olympia now.
so before the Mr. Olympia, you see the numbers on your YouTube channel like 4,000, 10,000 views, and you're like, okay, that's like money in the bank, right? It's nice to have, but it's not going to change your life.
Mhm.
So that's how I always saw it. Okay, they're just numbers on paper, and the views. I don't see the faces behind the views. And then you go to the Mr. Olympia and you meet the faces and the people that actually watch and listen and are thankful for all the information that you provide. And then you realize like it's way more people than I expected, dude. I landed in LA and it started.
Yeah,
So
right.
and you'll get the same thing because well, you got a popular podcast that's been around for a while, and you've had a lot of stellar guests on, so they will know you as well. So you walk around the expo or the Mr. Olympia finals or the meet and greet with the Olympians, and you're in demand. I
I
was the
think
last
it's
one to leave at the meet and greet.
right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's also, you just get so when it comes to social media numbers and whatnot, you get kind of lost in the
Mm,
fact that, oh, like I didn't get a million views. So what does it mean?
yeah.
But even like if you had 10, 20,000 views, like that number of people, like how many people do you think actually went to the Olympia?
I think the expo maybe 10,000 people.
10,000, right? So
Uh,
like if you get
yeah.
a video that gets 10,000 views,
I'd
that's
have to
you don't
shake
think of it as
everybody's
that
hand.
much, but that's
Yeah.
literally the equivalent of every single person there watching your
Yeah.
thing, right? So
No, you wouldn't
it's
be able to
easy
talk
to
to everybody and it would take a month to talk to
yeah,
everybody there. I would say
right,
even
right, right.
shaking hands, like if you get 200 views and you try to shake 200 hands, You know,
Hmm.
and I think the most I've ever done was on weddings or funerals, shake that many hands in
Yeah.
one time, and you're exhausted
Yeah.
at the end of the day, and that's just shaking hands. So yeah, I met people all the time there, and it was eye opening for me. So that's I
Yeah.
got a huge boost in like wanting to produce more content because now I got to meet the people who are actually watching, and
Right.
I got a lot of compliments and people say there was life changing information. So I'm really fired up to get back to the YouTube game and start producing more content. So
Yeah. Yeah.
starting yeah, trying to hire an editor and then get some help on the back end because I spend way too much time
Oh
editing
yeah.
videos. Yeah. Now you know
Yeah.
what it's like, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
For
so
sure.
hopefully this year we can go a little bit more professional and then catch up with all those big channels.
You're right. Right. Yeah.
A
So,
ton of
well,
views,
speaking
but
of
yeah,
speaking of like the YouTube and the fame, obviously you had some recent stuff that kind of blew you up a
yeah,
little bit more, right? With
yeah,
Liver King,
yeah.
which was
Not
so when that
not
came
not
out.
not the proudest moment of my life to grow a channel, but in
Yeah.
the end, if people want to subscribe, that's their choice, right? So yeah, I did gain 5,000 subscribers over the last month.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's
quite a bit.
interesting. So Liver King, it's like I'm always late to the party with these things because I don't tend to keep up with stuff too
Mm,
much. So
good.
like Andrew Tate, for example, I kept hearing this guy's name, kept hearing this guy's name. I'm
Mm,
like, I have no idea who this guy is until now. Like I'm seeing him everywhere, so I know a little
yeah.
bit of him. But it seemed like he was popular for a while. Same thing with the Liver King. I was just like, well, this is just some guy, and then it's like every single person is talking about this guy.
Yeah.
So I kind of just knew the last like maybe 2 months before he got kind of everything kind of got exposed is when I
Mm,
was seeing him more. And then Derek put out that video, and it's almost like a documentary in a way, right? It
yeah.
was almost like
Mhm.
this interesting
Now they put a
kind of
lot of
view.
effort in there. He hired an editor who was very familiar with producing the kind of content, and yeah, that took them several weeks or months before
Yeah.
that video was released. And when it was
Oh
finally
wow.
done, it was like, oh, it's finally done. Let's just put it out there, right?
Yeah.
And then and yeah, well, it got very popular, probably more popular than we all expected.
Yeah, and for the
And
few
then
people who hadn't seen it, so what basically the idea here was he I forget the exact order. He went back and found old emails where the Liver King
mhm,
had reached out to him asking for advice on gear, right?
mhm.
Was that the main thing? Like he just happened to come across that, or was there something else as
No, so
well?
I shared those emails with him a while back
Okay.
because I was getting increasingly frustrated, and he was getting upset with the way Liver King was kind of portraying the fitness industry. You don't need to do blood work. You don't need to check your organs. As long as you feel good, you're fine.
He recently
And
said you don't have to go to the dentist, which was, personally
yeah, you
hurtful
don't
to
have to
me.
wipe and that kind of stuff. All right, if that's your stick, that's fine. But knowing what his blood work looked like exactly, and as of a phone call that Derek had with Liver King, that will probably never get posted on request. So, you know, knowing how the blood work was and how uncooperative he was in the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of us trying to work together. And again, I was quite busy at that time as well, so the communication was simply wasn't there. I decided to let him go, and then you see this personality come to the forefront, kind of trying to undo everything that I and Derek and so many educators try to preach in the fitness industry for this entire community to stay healthy, right? And not sell some sort of weird pipe dream that is completely unrealistic. And if you can't eat the liver and the testicles, and then you have to buy these supplements, right? It's a little bit disingenuous as well. Um, you know, I gave him permission to release those emails and gave him the blood work, which didn't get released and probably will never get released, to help with the documentary and then solidify the case that was being made or the standpoint that was being made. And then he found those old emails that he had from Brian Johnson himself and some of the coworkers, which is even weirder. That one
Yeah.
of the coworkers of Ancestral Supplements starts sending out these kind of emails on either Brian's behalf or it's a little bit of a I know as much as the next guy.
Mhm.
And then when that all came out, I asked Derek to redact information because I didn't want to be known. Right? I knew it could potentially be career suicide. And as a coach, you shouldn't leak private information. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, so it's been a dilemma for over 1.5 years. Right? Do I sit on this or do I contribute to helping this guy finally come clean? Right? That was my main incentive. I wanted this guy to finally end the lie because it was turning into a life of its own. It was worse than wrestling. at this point. Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
turned into. It's like WWE.
So
It's like
basically, so that's a little different than I realized. So you had first told Derek about the emails, he had them,
mm,
and then later he found his those emails like of his own further down in
mhm.
his inbox. And then after that, now if you originally wanted your information
And
redacted,
that's all within several days of each other. So I mean,
oh
if
really?
the timeline is not, yeah, because we
That
were
was
talking about this. There was some information. I shared
yeah,
this detail. We started talking about it, and then he started doing some more research. So if the timeline is a little bit off, I mean, it's been several months now that
sure,
we
sure.
went to this direction, and then I said, okay, start working on the documentary or however you want to release it. Just leave me out of it. But
Right.
the internet detectives are super smart, and they say, oh, the MRI time zone difference, a questionnaire with particular
Uh,
sentence structure, and then within 4 days it was on Reddit. That
oh
guy never
really?
contacted me though. I still owe him a drink.
So is that so I didn't realize. So people kind of knew it was you, and then you put your video out saying like,
Mm.
yes, it was me, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I wanted to
Mhm.
wait about a week or two because I wanted to give Brian an opportunity to come clean and make this apology video himself. And then I saw the apology video, and I got turned off even more.
I was shocked. I have to say, I was shocked because I actually put out there. I was like, look, he's gonna do like when Athlean X had his whole thing. People talked about him being on
Mm,
TRT, or people talked about him using fake weights and all that stuff. He just didn't
mm.
address it, and it just went away. You know, it was a
Yeah,
story, but it went away, and he's as successful as
that's
ever.
how it always goes. At one point, it
Right.
goes away. I mean,
I was
you know.
so sure he was going to just ignore it. Everybody would talk
Mhm.
about it for a while, and then you could always just say, "Hey, they were fake emails. That was this." Like you could just lie, like he's
Yeah.
blatantly been
Mhm.
doing. And 80% of the people who follow him probably aren't that informed anyway, and they would have just like I was just
Mhm.
very surprised that he actually addressed it. But he's still, I'm sure he'll still make tons and tons of money.
I'm sure I don't think it will hurt his business at all. Besides, the lawsuits that are now coming out, which is
Mm,
kind of bad karma, unfortunately. But that's something you can expect when you've been keeping up appearances and keeping the charade going for as long as the guy did, and eventually would have gotten exposed anyway, just like Lance Armstrong, right? He got
right.
sold out by his teammates. And then some of the sponsors went back retroactively and said, "Hey, listen, we were sponsoring you for this many years, millions of dollars, under the premise that you were natural, but you weren't."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a very particular or very difficult situation if you want to keep that lie going, and the longer you keep it going, the worse the repercussions are going to get. So if the guy said from the start he was on TRT due to being insecure and having tanked levels because he trains too hard, if he did that from the start, it would have been an issue,
Yeah.
right? But when you see him going on podcasts and I say that people on TRT or people take steroids are subprimal. I mean, come on, man. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
fitness industry you're
Do you
talking
think he
about.
would have gotten? Because I have heard people say things similarly, like, "Hey, if he was just honest, you people would have respected you more, and you would have made just as much." I think people
Mhm,
definitely would have respected him more. I don't think he would have made as much because I think again the Gen Pop, like I think people probably underestimate
mhm.
or they overestimate how much influence and how much like the actual fitness industry matters to general population. The
Yeah.
reality is that a lot of these people, like even like I would have guessed somebody like Athlete X, definitely somebody like Liver King, it's a lot
Mhm.
of Gen Pop. They're a
It's
year
mostly
into
gym
it.
pop. So
Right.
I went to the Mr. Olympia, and everybody that I talked to, except for Jose Raymond, but we'll save that for our podcast in the future. Everybody was happy that it happened, and
Hmm.
they mentioned all kinds of words that I won't repeat on YouTube. Talking about the Liver King, people that knew what happened and people who didn't know what happened were just happy that he got exposed, but didn't know I was involved.
Hmm.
I haven't met anybody so far, besides people online, that were actually upset that he got exposed.
Yeah.
Like all the words you generally expect from a YouTube comment, right? All the bad
Right.
words on my YouTube channel that I had to delete because it was pretty vulgar. So
Totally.
yeah, so I would say that people in the fitness industry, or the very large majority of the people that I spoke to in the 2 weeks that I was in the United States, they knew, they didn't like the guy, and they were happy that it happened. But I think general population, the people that do believe it, that wrestling is real, or do think that all of the movie stars are drug free, like
Right.
Thor or Captain America or The Rock, right? All these personas. Um, yeah, they're probably disappointed because they've been lied to for 1.5 years.
Sure.
And the weird thing is that they keep supporting the guy, even though he kept lying over and over and over again about this particular subject. And then in the apology video, it's still a little bit of half truths, in my opinion. So
Sure.
those people will still support him, and by all means, go for it. There's now a huge people have made their choice, so to say. Right? They've made the choice to support the guy or not. And those who will continue to support the guy, they're probably people that were so far gone with their health that such a lifestyle that the guy promotes is already better than whatever they were doing in the past. But if you go to a bro science diet or a vegan diet or a ketogenic diet or any diet that involves you cooking your own meals, that will already be an improvement. It doesn't matter
Right.
which direction if you come from fast food, not exercising, drinking, drugs, etc. If you come from that background or you're clinically depressed and you start eating a little bit better, no matter what diet it is, you'll already do better. So it has nothing to do with the carnivore diet and eating raw testicles and taking supplements with labels that have single ingredients but no nutritional breakdown. Um, I think that those people that actually followed the guy um, could have done get could have gotten similar results from anything that involved
Sure.
cooking their own meals. So
Yeah.
and
There's a lot of
probably
psychological
did it
evidence
cheaper and
there.
with less false expectations of what is actually realistic following a lifestyle like that, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of psychological evidence that suggests. I mean, a few of these things. One, everybody's personal anecdote is the most important thing to them, in spite of
Hmm.
whatever research might counteract that.
Yeah. Hmm.
Two, when you have a large investment into something, even in the face of evidence against it, it's very hard to then back down from it, right? You justify it in other ways. You
Yeah.
say, well, or like the classic thing with a charlatan showing that maybe 80% of what they say is actually kind of correct, but then a
Hmm.
lot of it is just BS. It's like, well, this is correct, this is correct, this is correct. And unless you really have a lot of knowledge in that area, you
Hmm.
can't parse out what's correct and what's not correct. So you just
Yeah.
believe all of it. And then again, you have your own personal results. So this is why everybody is an expert in diet, right? Because they've all had their own experiences with it,
Yeah.
and then they
Yeah.
just go with that. So I get, like, if you're a general population person, wow, I was eating like garbage. Now I'm eating all this meat and everything. I've lost weight. I feel better.
Yeah. You
I
get all your
behave more
vitamins in, you get
effective.
your B vitamins, you get a little bit of cholesterol, you get, some omega 3s, you get, your digestion is better, you lower inflammation. There's a lot to be said for a carnivore diet.
Yeah,
People get great results worldwide. The long-term evidence isn't really there. And then when the carnivore guys start to dig up evidence that's long-term, it's, kind of cherry picked.
yeah.
The cholesterol doesn't matter. Well, it does matter if you look
Mhm.
into very long-term data. So I think the carnivore diet is a great starting point if you mess yourself up due to lifestyle decisions, but you can only accomplish so much. And when you look at what is his name, the carnivore guy, carnivore MD,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Paul Saladino.
Paul Saladino. So if you look at Paul Saladino, I think that's a realistic goal to have of
Yeah,
what your physique can look like. A little bit lanky, a little bit of that, weird textured, leathery skin. But he seems like a nice guy. He interprets his blood work very well. Whether he believed that, Brian was on steroids or not, or Liver King was on steroids or not, that's to be debated. But why would the guy look for hormone advice somewhere else if Brian didn't know? So I'm a lot of people called sorry
if Paul
Paul
didn't know.
Paul
Well,
yeah Paul didn't. So I
so I
know a
don't
lot of
know,
people are
Paul.
hammering on Paul, but I've been on the receiving end of quote unquote friendships where people were just lying through their teeth
Yeah,
for years, very recently, and that hurts. Like, fuck, I can't
yeah.
believe how stupid I am for investing into this friendship that turned out to be
I just
based
realized who
on
you meant.
so well,
Yeah,
let's not go there. But so you feel dumb about yourself, right? You feel a little
yeah,
bit, you feel sad from I'm 40 fucking years old. Why am I letting this happen to myself again? When I was 25, I should have known better and now invested into a friendship that didn't pay off. So I can completely understand if Brian didn't know, I can completely understand how that
if
feels.
Paul didn't
So
know.
Yeah, Paul. Yes, fuck. Sorry,
Yeah,
if
no,
Paul didn't know. Yeah. Um, so I don't want to hammer on Paul too much. And in the end, yeah, if you have to save face to keep his image and business going, yeah, then what is he going to do? You know, like I had to
yeah,
distance myself from people to keep my business intact and my reputation intact. So, and in the end, yeah, what is he going to say? I knew Brian was taking steroids, and I supported him all the way. We're business partners, and I took
right, right.
50% cut on based on his lies. So, you know,
Yeah, I don't. I see it both ways. I think people like, and I don't know Paul at all. I don't really even follow Paul other than when I see other people post about
Mm,
him. I think it is nearly impossible that you would be in this industry, which again I know he doesn't take the lifting part as seriously as some other people, but that you're
mm,
in this industry and that you knew him 5 years ago. Which, if you look back 5 years ago, he was impressive physically, Liver King, but not nearly as
mm.
much. And to see that and to not be 99% certain that he is taking stuff. With that
So,
said, I would also say that, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know how much business they did together. So this is just like an
mm,
outside perspective. It's not necessarily on him to make sure that all of his friends and everything are doing everything correctly. Like if he blatantly knew and Brian told him, "Hey, I'm lying to all these people," that's one thing. I
mm.
just again, like it's not like I've had people on the podcast. If I have somebody on the podcast and then they're doing something
Mm.
nefarious on the outside, it's not like I'm supporting that necessarily. So,
No, but you're
I
not
just
in
think,
business with these people.
yeah,
That's
right,
that's
exactly,
different. Like I'm partially in business with Derek because I'm a
mm,
sponsored athlete. I help here and there with formulations or product development where I can. I give my recommendations. I do fact checking for videos. Right, we're heavily involved with what we're trying to portray to the outside world, and that's a better state of health for the fitness community. Right, that's the overall message of me and Derek. And even though Derek is a little bit more for mainstream, and I'm a little bit more hardcore with all the naughty, crazy information that most people don't want to share. But I don't really care at this point. I just put it out there, right? So let's say I were to do something stupid, I would expect Derek to distance himself from me right away because he's got to keep his empire going. And
sure,
and the other way around, it would be the same. If Derek were to do something incredibly stupid, I would have to distance myself from that collaboration as well. But I don't see anything that Derek is doing or I'm doing that both of us agree with. Like, oh, dude, that's a scumbag move, Steve, or
right,
scumbag
right,
move, Derek, right? And then that would have been a discussion. So I don't know if Paul had the foresight to bring that up, but I think in his statement he brought that up that he was worried about the guy's health. And again, to honor a friendship, you have to keep a little bit for yourself and not go in depth too much
sure.
when you make a statement like that. I mean, I made a 30-minute statement and then I redacted and redacted and redacted until I felt it was suitable for the public. Because there's a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
more to be said. There's so much more
yeah,
to be
I'm
said, dude.
sure. Yeah,
So,
it's tough. And again, I don't know
it,
anything with Paul, but it's hard to imagine anybody looks at that guy and meets him in person and works with him and isn't like, it's pretty obvious. I think to almost anybody who's
yeah,
been doing this for a while.
of course, everybody in the fitness industry knew. Right? Everybody knew. It came to no surprise to nobody. Only surprised the general population. Which now looking back, I mean, I tried to better the general population, and all I got was shit for it.
Yeah. So you got attacked
Was
a
it
lot for
worth
your
it?
video?
Oh yeah, oh, yeah.
Interesting.
But that's all online, right? So that's why when I went to the United States, I was like, okay, in the back of my hand, let's see how long it takes from one of these guys to show up and say something. It didn't happen. It didn't
Yeah,
happen. Whether
interesting.
I was in LA or Las Vegas, or going outside talking to people. The only person who said something was Jose Raymond. We had an adult discussion about it while we were both blastingly drunk. So we had a good laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was done respectfully. So that was the only resistance that I got in the real world,
Mhm.
and everything else was online. And you know how online is. People vent their frustrations, and they're your worst enemy. And they want to murder you, and then man, all kinds of weird stuff. Which was never my intention for the guy. My intention was for him to come clean after lying for 1.5 years, which he did to a certain extent. So
Yeah.
that you got to respect. But yeah, in my opinion, he could have handled that a lot better. But he could have been handling it a lot better for the last 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So,
Am I
and I'm sure
recalling
what
that there
people.
was supposed to be a part two as well at some point? Didn't
No, so
Derek
that
say?
was the blood work. Yeah, that was the blood work. But I don't think that's. Yeah, no,
Oh, okay. That won't come out.
no.
Interesting.
Yeah. But
Huh.
now everybody's talking about it, right? Greg Duchette made 400 videos about this topic. And at least Johnny Bravo and Nick Trigili had the balls to reach out to me directly and said, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" Before they made their
Interesting.
videos. But a lot of guys didn't reach out, and they would just post their opinion
Yeah.
based on what they saw online, which what you see online is only part of the story, and whether that
Sure.
it's there's so much more to be said. I mean, I'm sure Liver King would like to say more too, but I
Yeah.
think at this point it's kind of died out and just let the guy do his thing. And if he wants to continue or whatever is next for him, that's something he'll need to address. I'm going to keep pushing forward and try to provide the best quality information I can and keep people healthy. And just like all the people that I met at the Mr. Olympia with tears in their eyes, telling me that they never thought about MRIs and CT scans and ultrasounds and or safer practices, right?
Yeah.
So all those people that I met at the Mr. Olympia they were very kind and generous and thankful for the last 2 or 3 years that I've been producing content on YouTube. So that's what I'll continue to do. Yesterday, did you watch that video yesterday
The one that you
that I
put out?
posted? Yeah.
I know. Let me check what it was.
No, it's okay. It was just a little 2023 plan. So I started the
Oh,
video
I
off.
saw the title of it. I
Yeah.
saw, yeah. Now, what's that about? Going off
So
and
it's
I
just
actually
just
almost did watch that.
that I was looking for an editor. I started a Patreon and the direction of the YouTube channel. So I opened that video with saying I'm going to focus on natty or nots. I'm going to expose all of the fake naturals, reaction style content, highlight all the flaws of some fitness influencer and never omit all of the accomplishments, right? All the good stuff of this particular influencer. So really hammer down on them and in 5-minute
Yeah.
videos with a ton of ads. And people had a heart attack. It was just a joke, right? People are like, dude, I'm unsubscribing, edit, right? 5 minutes later, oh, okay, you're actually going to do more deep dives. Because
That's
that's why
funny.
people are subscribed. Yeah, it was a good
Yeah.
wake up. I haven't produced that much content the last 3 months because I just got so busy.
Okay.
But I'm almost back into full swing. So enough about this subject. How's it
Sure.
been for you, man? I saw that podcast with Schofield and Abel and French guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
Natural
Yeah. Yeah. Natural
Hypertrophy.
hypertrophy.
I had
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
watch it right before to see if anybody said something. But actually, that was a good podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like all those guys a lot. Yeah. Jeff, have you spoken with Jeff? Jeffrey Very
No,
Schofield?
and he's in China still, right?
I believe so. Yeah. Yep.
He got to get out of there.
Yeah.
Everything I
Yeah.
heard about China said it's going crazy over there, with the restrictions and so.
Yeah. I've known
And
him
it's weird.
for
He said he didn't monetize his channel.
He didn't, and then the natural hypertrophy guy, he doesn't at all. He's
Yeah.
very private, which I think. I mean, I don't know if Jeff is going back and forth on that or not. He's got books. He does coaching.
Mhm.
It's really interesting actually to again be involved and get to meet so many people doing different things with the industry because
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think you can do very well. I will say I I've never seen an industry where there's just so much BS. I mean, I won't call the guy out by name, but I saw a guy
Yeah.
recently say that he makes close to 7 figures per year doing this. And
Mhm.
I would tell you, I know this guy enough to know there is a 0.000% chance that is true
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
even close.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I guess there's a fake it
That's
till you
over a
make it.
million, right? 7 figures. Yeah.
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
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 It's not
It's
even,
it's it's
I'd be
tough.
surprised if this guy makes 6 figures, to be honest. But
Okay. 6 figures is doable, but that's a big range.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's a
exactly.
big range. Yeah.
But it's just it's interesting how much of a like I said, fake it till you make it there is. Same thing with like coaching in
Mhm.
general. People who say, "Oh, I've coached all these people," and it's like, "Have you?" That like there's just it's weird that the standard almost is that you just say whatever you want until you get your coaching, progress or whatever your video progress, and then you
Mhm.
just kind of go from there. Like I know,
No,
obviously, like
honest, I'm going to be brutally honest. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I started coaching, and I had
mhm,
my wife as a client, right, who didn't pay because she was in the girlfriend zone. When
yeah,
people ask me, who do you coach? I said, I have about 5 clients, but they're abroad
mhm.
because nobody wants to be the first.
Right,
So,
of course.
I did that too to get started. Once I got 5 clients, I kept it at five. I didn't say 50.
Yeah, yeah. Right, right.
you
No, I
know?
mean, people like to some degree. I mean, look, like when I first started doing procedures, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like how many implants have you done? It's like, I wouldn't lie, but I would just say I had some joke that it's honestly been so
Mm,
long and I've done so many now I don't even remember. But I would just have some joke right out of residency.
yeah.
And it's tough if you're the first. Even now, like
Yeah.
I'll sometimes take my mask off and
To see how
I
young
don't
you
think I
are.
look that young, but
Yeah.
compared to maybe like their former, doctor who was
Mhm.
55, it's like, oh, what are you, a kid? Have you done this before? So you still get that, and there's that
Yeah.
perception, you don't want to seem inexperienced.
It
I
will,
do
that will stay
understand.
until you're like over 50 because I'm close to 40 and people still say that I'm young. But those guys are in their
Yeah,
50s, like the
right.
guys that have been in the fitness industry a long time. And they're like, you're 40. Life's just getting
It's
started,
so
boy.
funny how that changes. I used to work with a guy who was 72, and
Uh-huh.
we were talking about a patient who's coming in, and I was just saying, details, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, it's a young girl. She was like
Mhm.
53 years old," and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like,
It's
"What?"
perspective, right? Yeah, it's
It's all
perspective.
perspective. Yeah, so
That's
it's
so
funny.
funny. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
tough, man. I think once you break that 40-year-old mark, then people of all ages start to take you a little bit more seriously. But yeah,
Mhm.
70, I mean, dude, you've lived so much of a life that everybody's younger than
Yeah,
you are, and especially if you've been working in the same field for what 40, 50 years,
exactly.
yeah, then everybody's kind of dumb compared to you. So you're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, good luck, change that crowd.
right, exactly, exactly. But a lot of what I notice with social media is it's like you can almost kind of like see and project somebody's trajectory as far as their growth. Like,
Mhm.
there's a plastic surgeon I had on the podcast, and I told him when he was at 20,000 subscribers, I said, "Dude,
You said that
this
on the
next year,
last podcast. I remember
yeah,
it vividly.
yeah." And now he's up to like 450,000. But you can just tell
Wow.
the style of video. And I know, like you said, you were joking about the way that you're going to have these short videos and calling out everybody. But at the
Yeah,
same time, you do know that if you did that, you'd probably lose a lot of your current audience, but you'd
yeah,
build a huge new audience. And then it
yeah.
just becomes an ethical discussion and just what the person's preferences are. Like,
Mhm.
do you like making that content? But a lot of times, I think with the type of content, you can kind of see where it's going to go growth
So,
wise.
so if you want to go vanilla, that's basically the way to go, right? Most of the bigger YouTube channels, it's all reaction content. PewDiePie, Sniper Wolf, Mr. Beast reacts. It's all people reacting to other stuff, right? So
Yeah.
you're there with your best friend that's online reacting to this content, and you get influenced by their opinion, and then fancy editing and a lot of jump cuts and dopamine hits, because that's what general population wants. Now, I thought about it going that route, and that's why I made that joke in the video that I released yesterday. I thought about it, but I don't want to be known as a disingenuous guy. Like, I started to share everything that I knew about bodybuilding and health and nutrition and that kind of stuff online. So, once I moved away from this field, and at least people that, watch my YouTube channel, that didn't have to undergo the same lengthy deep dives that I did, because it would all be there on the YouTube channel. So I have about 500 videos left, and then I think I'm pretty much done in that endeavor. And, I could gain a bigger audience and grow my AdSense account and my subscribers and make a ton of money, making that kind of content. But it's not what I enjoy doing. And I don't think I'll add any value beyond the current reaction channels that are already there. Because if you aim for general population, you have to dumb it down. But I moved to Thailand to get away from general population. I
Yeah.
specifically don't learn the language so I don't have to interact with general population. So I'm like, yeah, really. Or people say, why don't learn Thai? I mean, I speak enough Thai to get around, but as soon as you start to learn the language, then I'm into the same position as I was in Holland. You understand everything, and everything that I understand, I didn't enjoy hearing. As brutal as it sounds. So
Yeah.
now I'm just like, okay, I'm like, the invisible man. And I only
Yeah.
talk with people that are in the YouTube game, or successful entrepreneurs, or so I'm really selective on who I surround myself with. And I want the same thing on my YouTube channel. I just want to, get maybe 100,000 people that are like-minded, that like pharmacology, that like business, that like or that have patience, right? They can be in a long-term relationship that lasts at least 10 years.
Hmm.
I've been with my wife for 8 now, so we're not even getting started yet. I want the people that have vision, right, on how to improve their lives through any way, any means possible, whether that's pharmacology or business, or nutrition or training, right? People who want to level up. That's the people I enjoy working with and talking to, because then you can level up together, right?
Yep.
So you let general population in, and that'll brings the entire intelligence of the channel, and the 100,000 or 70,000 subscribers, which are already there, down. It's like you take it from 150 IQ to 98.
Mm-hmm.
I can't live with myself, man.
Yeah. And it's tough
And
because you're limiting your growth. And,
yeah,
most people, you respond to that, right? You said those dopamine hits. Oh, I do this thing. You probably heard me say this on that roundtable podcast
yeah,
where it's like, even if it's not getting you towards the goal you have in mind, it counts as progress. There's more views. And it's really hard to realize that like you don't want to miss the forest for the trees, right? And you don't
yeah,
want to sidestep this thing just to get, quick view or quick buck or whatever it is. But it's hard to do that because you almost get tricked by it. I
yeah.
heard
I know.
examples of that too.
I know. So sometimes I think you look at the views, purely the views and the engagement on the topics, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do more of this kind of content. And then I realize that I'm miserable making that kind of content. And the people who actually sign up for consultations or mentorship or buy ebooks, they watch the content that gets the least amount of views. The
Mm,
long form content, the highly in depth, highly structured timestamps content that you would need to sit down with a pen and paper. That's what I saw from the comments on the latest video. Said we like deep dives. I get my notepad ready. I start researching. I might pause the video to go to PubMed, do more research, come back to the video, continue watching, go to PubMed again, buy a study, right, or read something on Science Direct. That's my core audience. That's the people who
yeah,
actually support
that's
me
great.
and the people who do consultations and I get a residual business from, right? So I realized that a long time ago that a video doesn't need to do well for my presence and reputation, which is now a little bit damaged, but I'm trying my best to bring that back up. The people that watch those videos that don't get so many views, those are my core audience. And
Yeah,
the popular videos, those are just extra people coming in that might stay around for a couple of the easy to digest videos. But
right.
I like to produce highly in depth videos that are difficult to digest. So it's a little bit of a filter of the people who can actually watch it to the end, are
Yeah,
worthy of my life experience.
yep,
Now, my life experience has been, all over the place. So I understand that not everybody can, get something out of that. But I think the people that do, there will just be a core audience of 25,000 to 100,000 people. And once I break 100,000, then I realized that I collected more like-minded individuals than I ever thought possible. I don't I
yeah.
don't I don't think I'm going to get to a million, and maybe I don't even want it because I would never be able to talk to all of them when I go to the Mr.
Well,
Olympia.
I don't think, and this is kind of what I was saying to them.
Mm,
Again, they're more like the natural crowd, but it's
mm,
you look at certain content, and it's like I would agree with you. If you stay with kind of content you're producing now,
yeah.
you'll never get to a million subscribers, which
No,
isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it's like there's not a million people out there who want deep dives into
no.
anabolics, and you know
I
what I
think
mean,
I
which is
think at
fine.
most 100. I think at most 100,000. The content that I make now, the life-changing content, the content that takes forever to produce and forever to digest.
Mhm.
I think 100,000, maybe 125 with time.
Yeah,
Um, there's just not so many intelligent people out there who are really willing to sit down nowadays and learn something new, whether that's from
yeah,
the scientific evidence or the anecdotal experience or my personal experience or just piecing it all together, knowing what I know about biology. And then, the tons of people that I helped the last 10 to 15 years. Yeah, I think the audience for that is very, very small. But those people, when you meet them at the Mr. Olympia, all successful,
yep,
all respectable people with long-term relationships, whether that's married or girlfriend or friendships that I've had for decades, right? People that really take care of their health, people that really are on top of their stuff, solid people, right? Base people, and that's the people I'm trying to collect as subscribers. It's like a catch 'em all Pokemon, but the
yeah.
ones that I'm trying to catch have the most points and are the most difficult to find.
Right. I think an
Um,
example is like you look at, and again, like how in a way like specialized you are. So I look at somebody like a Peter Attia versus maybe like
mm,
a Mark Hyman, right? So like
yeah,
Mark Hyman, from what I've seen, really not a fan of a lot of his work. He kind of falls into that category I was saying before of like, well, a lot of this stuff is true, but then there's all this added stuff that's not true. There's no evidence. I just looked
yeah,
at real quick, 2.2 million followers on Instagram.
mhm,
Then you got somebody like a Peter Attia who, his, and I've mentioned this with my podcast too. YouTube is not really the best format for just podcasts. So like
no,
I would just never grow that much because I primarily do podcasts. But Peter Tia's YouTube is not really active at all. He's got a very popular podcast, but even then,
Right.
it's not in the realm of a top 10 or top 50 because it's like people who, I mean, you have to be intelligent to get through his podcast
Hmm.
if you're really understanding them. And it's focused on longevity and health and like long term, right? It's not this quick entertaining thing.
You
So,
need to be so financially secure for to follow up on the content that you provides.
yeah.
And I realized like I have an upcoming mitochondrial support stack. Right? It's how to improve your mitochondrial functioning, reduce oxidative stress, and just improve the overall quality of life because mitochondria and enzymatic reactions within the body contribute to anti-aging and you feeling in tip-top shape 24/7. Right? That stack costs thousands of dollars per month.
Mm,
A lot
really?
of people can't afford that. Yeah, NAD plus, NMN, a blood work, right? Man, injectable glutathione, the IV treatment, which costs money. So it will set you back. It's a huge luxury. And dude, when I produce that, it will be one of my proudest videos
Mm,
because it will the people can actually afford it. It will enhance their life substantially, right? You will take 10, 15 years off how you feel, right? So
yeah.
I went back 10 years, literally. I don't feel 40 at all. I feel like 30, maybe 25 on some days.
Yeah.
And that protocol is going to get maybe 2, 3,000 views, and maybe 1,000 people who watch that protocol can actually follow through because they're financially secure enough. And those will be the people that I meet in real life, or fly into Thailand, or send me a lengthy email of how much I changed their lives. And that's ultimately what I do it for. So I don't need a big audience. I just need an audience of people that it's kind of like me, whether that's all over the world, or within Thailand, or solely in America. Yeah, it doesn't really
Well, it's
matter.
very helpful to have that specific niche because, again, like you look at Peter T. I didn't even know he was this well known, but I realized
Mhm.
recently he's Hugh Jackman's doctor. He's Chris
Yeah.
Hemsworth doctor. I did not realize that, but it's because. So I think the evidence on like I think maybe David Sinclair is probably a little
Mhm.
bit too optimistic with what we'll be able to do with just a few years lifespan
Yeah.
wise. I think Peter T is very realistic, which is to say, maybe we can add 5, 10 years, but it's also a huge like quality of life thing. But
Right.
he's kind of known as like this guy, and that's how you get celebrities to go to them because I mean the reality is there might be other doctors just as good, but you want that person you've heard on the podcast. You want that person
Right.
who's
So, so,
you.
so with the YouTube channel, what I noticed is that people will start following you, right? And instead of going to the doctor and having a 20-minute interaction, they can watch you for hours.
Yeah.
And then it's the same as meeting girls on Tinder, or another dating app. You've been chatting for hours already, so you feel like you know
Mhm.
each other. And then sleeping together is way easier. And it's the same with customers that sign up for services. They've watched you for hours, they know the information that you have, and they like you as a person because you're based in long-term relationships, and that all counts for something.
Yeah.
And then they're much easier to decide themselves to sign up for a service. Like
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
need to chat with anybody on Instagram for hours on end before they buy an ebook. they'll
Yeah.
they'll buy the ebook themselves if they like what I have to present on YouTube. And it's the same with Attila, or all of these guys that go into anti-aging. You only need 100 financially secure people to like your stuff, and you have customers for life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
especially with
and
that
of
one, right?
course,
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
one
and
for
of course, I try to mix in the content that is for people who are undergoing the recession now, right? So I make videos about budget bodybuilding, budget fitness, cheap food options, and that kind of stuff. Because if I had a time machine, that would be very valuable for me too. When I was dead broke in my 20s,
sure.
and but now that's I'm a little bit more financially secure, so I can focus more on those more expensive treatments and anti-aging stuff. So I'm just trying to diversify and then try to keep it balanced, but it's
Yeah.
yeah, I don't expect a million subs, man. Plus I probably don't want that, because the more subs you have, the less of a private life you have. And I
Right.
do enjoy being able to go outside without getting recognized. A
Yeah.
little bit of
Yeah, for sure.
anonymity is appreciated.
Yeah,
you
I just
know
as like a final social media comment, I just thought it was interesting. You said, I think you said 500, which is obviously a lot of videos, but just the idea that you have X number of videos versus again somebody like I don't subscribe to Greg just said on YouTube, but when you
Mhm.
do these reaction videos or even like
It's
somebody who
unlimited.
I do respect, I think like Nick Strength and
Oh,
Power. right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
there's constant
Read
content
between the lines there. Somebody I
um,
do respect.
because
Nice.
there's news, right? So
Yeah.
there's news, so there's always more stuff. This is why I actually it's funny. So I write down my goals, and I actually found something
Mm.
from 2014 where I wrote down video ideas, and I
Yeah.
forgot about that because I didn't
Oh,
start the
really?
channel
Okay.
in 2018. Well, I
Uh-huh.
had because my thought was I'm going to have 50 like the reason I never did it before the podcast is I'm going to have 50 to 100 videos and then that's it. Like it's going to be everything I really have to say. Whereas a
Yeah.
podcast, there's constantly new stuff. There's new people
Right.
to talk to and meet.
Hmm.
So that's really what got me to do it. And lo and behold, if you look at my content over the 4 years, I've done about 80 videos as like personal videos,
Right.
not
Hmm.
podcast videos.
Hmm.
So it's right in line with what I said. It's just kind of like those are the ones where because I have the podcast as a weekly thing, if I want to talk about a video, I do. But there's no pressure if I have to do it. But if
Right.
all you do is reaction videos or stuff like there, you got to have stuff that's constant versus you were saying like with the
Well, there's
500
always
videos.
something to react to, and otherwise, if there's nothing to react to, you design the narrative, and then script it out, and then react to that. React to the script using
Mhm.
footage, and angle that in a certain direction. So that's why I personally I don't really like reaction style content. And my videos are of course not, you can watch them today or next year, right? There's no pressure on it, so that's why the
Yep.
audience, the algorithm doesn't really pick them up, because most people are like, oh, I can watch that next week,
Mhm.
when YouTube wants you to watch it right now so they can
Yeah.
push ads and make money, right? So my content is not very algorithm friendly. That's why it just grows slow. But again, if I when I went to the Mr. Olympia and I see the amount of love and respect that I get, I mean, it's overwhelming, man.
Yeah.
I I didn't expect that at all. So, and what is a bigger event in the bodybuilding space? Arnold Classic,
Yeah.
FIBO Germany. There's no bodybuilding contest there anymore, but I think when they have a FIBO Germany, the expo, it's gigantic. I've been there.
Mm.
So once I realized that, okay, I'm now finally a part of the fitness industry, and the large majority of the people respect me and love me for what I'm doing, then all I have to do is keep doing what I'm doing, and eventually more people will find me, on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just a matter of time, and I've always been a patient guy, and I was drug free for 11 years, and I come off cycle. I'm patient with my PCT and my organ imaging, which a lot of people are not doing that nowadays, but I can wait, dude. I've been
Yeah.
in, investments for a very long time, and some investments take 4 or 5 years to pay off. But when they pay off good. And
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
investments that pay off allow me not to do reaction videos.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Well, let's. I forget sometimes that you were natural for. Obviously, everybody started natural. I forget that you were
Yeah,
natural for that long.
yeah,
So let's dive into a little bit on that topic
yeah,
because something we said a little bit before recording was I think, and I forget, maybe Scott Stevenson said this recently, that
mhm,
people both overstate and understate the importance of steroids. And I
yeah,
think you get both, right? So you get the bodybuilders who say it's just a cherry on top, and it's like, okay, but you happen to be 100 pounds heavier than like any natural bodybuilder, right?
yeah,
But what very commonly is thought is that like, I'm going to take steroids and I'm going to look like Ronnie Coleman. And I think
oh yeah,
probably most people listening to this understand that's not true. But again,
yeah,
going back to Gen Pop, like that is a really common view. And I have
oh yeah,
friends who are smaller than me who are actively on gear. I talk about genetics a lot. And I think people forget that genetic response is still a genetic component, right? And how
hmm
you respond to steroids is hugely variable. So I'll leave it at that if you want to discuss a little bit.
yeah. So I think a lot of people just don't take the time to figure out their body. Now, I probably could have figured my body out in 5 years if I were to hire a coach like, a 3D Muscle Journey or Alberto Nunez or any of those guys that are highly experienced with drug free bodybuilding, or at least from what I understand. Because when I was drug free, those guys weren't around, or coaching was not really a thing, right? We're talking about up until, well, what was the year, 2009, right? I mean, social media wasn't really around.
Mhm.
Bodybuilding.com was a thing, but I mean, the only naturals on there were kind of annoying.
Yeah.
so, so those guys you wouldn't sign up for coaching, or at least not me. I was like, oh, why would I sign up for this madness? So, I think if I were to redo it, let's say now, and I would still be drug free, I would sign up with a proper drug free coach and just get guidance. right? And I think based on what I look like drug free, my biggest and my leanest, I think I could have gained another 10 pounds,
And remind
maybe
me, what
5 pounds.
was your stats before you jumped on anything?
I think I was like 74 kilos lean. So let me type that into the kilograms to pounds. And when I say lean, it's like 7% body fat. So that's not Nunez lean. So
Right,
that's
right.
165. And then my heaviest, I was about, let's say 195, 200.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
at
and
five
you're
nine. But
5'9"?
that was
Yeah, yeah.
chunky. Yeah, that was chunky
Chunky
200.
200.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah. Yeah.
that's like still
One,
solid.
one,
I
one,
mean,
one pack.
yeah, yeah, right, right. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's pretty much in line with like a good natural bodybuilder, right? Like
I,
165,
I
not
think it was
stage lean,
decent.
but
Yeah. Like off season, middle of the winter, when you wear a sweater, you would look big. People were like,
right.
what's going on here? People would
Yeah, yeah,
try to
yeah.
kind of quantify how big you are. You have a little bit of thickness. And then,
Yeah.
of course, when you diet down, and I would follow the IFB Pro diets with 2 hours of cardio and then fish and asparagus because we didn't know any better, to get lean that way. So I'd lost a ton of strength, a ton of size. And of course, if I had a time machine and I could do it with the drug free information that's available nowadays, I'd probably end up maybe 2, 3 kilos heavier, doing the same diet. And I would train vastly different. My nutrition would stay pretty much the same. But I was really heavy into nutrition at the time because that's basically all you have,
Yeah.
nutrition and training, training volume. But honestly, I think I could have gained, a decent amount of size and better conditioning.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
that's
think
all
that's
in
a
hindsight.
realistic view. Like,
Yeah,
2, 3 kilograms at the same body fat. I think that's completely
yeah,
realistic. Some people, they think, oh, if I like, I've heard some guy talk about this, like, it's like PED amnesia, and people
mhm.
almost forget how much it helped. And it's people who like, well, if I wasn't on gear, I still would have gained 1 pound of muscle a year for 20 years. So I'd be about the same size. You get that
No,
nonsense. I think
I was
your views
stuck
are
at, I
very
was stuck at 195 pounds for 5 years.
mm,
I got bored of it.
yeah,
I was like, okay, I'm fat again. I gained one increment on my lift, and everybody is around me on steroids making phenomenal gains. And then, the economic crisis of 2009, 2010 happened. And it was like, I lost my job due to the
mm,
bankruptcy case. And it was like, you know what? I'm going to get my hands dirty. I was 26 years old. I did a cycle of 1 amp of test because I was scared. I didn't want to take anymore. So that's TRT plus. And then I finished that off with injectable Winstrol in testosterone propionate. And I used some clenbuterol at the time. So the cycle was quite moderate. And I gained like 4 to 6 kilos on my first cycle and I
you had
was
a pretty
leaner
good
at the time.
response.
Yeah, I had a good response, but I also had 10 years in the gym on me. So is that all the hard work that I already put in now being doubled, due to the steroids, or tripled, however you want to look at it? Or was it good response to drugs? I think I have average response to drugs based on all the people that I coached. I've met people who go on a 1 amp test for their first cycle and they explode, and I get upset because I'm like, man, this guy wasn't natural for 10 years. He was natural for 3. He still
Yeah,
doesn't know how to contract his biceps, and he just blows up. And
yeah.
then I know guys that come to me for their first cycle and 250 doesn't work, and
Mhm.
500 doesn't work, and 1,000 does something, and then I put them on insulin and then they explode. Yeah, so everybody has like that moment of realization that, okay, this drug is like the best thing for me, but it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think steroids are hugely understated. And there's also something like muscle memory, right? So I used to be much bigger in the past, and now I can sustain that with much lower dosages. But I wouldn't have gone up to 260 pounds or 255 pounds without copious amounts of steroids and copious amounts of growth hormone and copious amounts of insulin and copious amounts of food, to the point I got non-alcoholic fatty liver disease out of it.
What was
So
the most that you took, everything combined?
2 grams a test, 8 units of growth hormone, and then 35 units of long-acting insulin at that time, right?
No other anabolics
No, I
or
just
orals,
because
anything?
so at that time that was off season, or no, that was a cutting phase. Sorry, off season I would never go over a gram. So that was a cutting phase. And at that time, injectable primobolan wasn't available. And that's when I became aware that all of the injectables here in Thailand were basically poison because the carrier oil were all synthetic and would raise inflammatory markers.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, I can throw more orals in the mix and burden my liver, or I can just take more tests. and an aromatase inhibitor. And everybody thought I was crazy, but that's to this date still the best cycle I've ever done. Test
Yeah.
GH and insulin.
Test is
GH and
best,
insulin.
right?
Best freaking dude. My lipids were beautiful, right? My HDL was 50, my LDL was 110, total cholesterol nicely in range. That's without any real lipid management, no statin, no ezetimibe. I didn't even know about ezetimibe at the time. So that's just citrus bergamot and fish oil with each meal, and cardio and healthy eating. My liver enzymes were beautiful. My blood pressure was normal. I took a little bit of Cialis to keep that under control. It was the easiest and most productive cycle I've ever did. Test GH and insulin. That's why I wrote a whole ebook about it, because I reproduced that cycle with many of my clients, and they hire me for all the drug secrets, and then you put them on such a basic cycle, and they're pissed.
Yeah, right.
This is not what I want. I want the tremboloni sandwich. I want the Anivor.
Yeah.
I want the this and that and fast-acting insulin. No. Start with this, and let's see in 3 months. And they blow up, and their blood work is beautiful.